This is Eflex and welcome back to another A Producer's Approach video. In this video we're going to be looking at the TheDiabolicalWaffle song Kaleidoscope. So if you guys haven't watched my videos in the past, I basically separate these videos into three different parts. I have an intro backstory section, then a breakdown analysis section, and then lastly an outro section. So TheDiabolicalWaffle is an artist that has released a lot of music on Argofox, and I've listened to a lot of his music around the time that I was releasing the Diversity EP with Maisong on Argofox. I was listening to some other Argofox artists kind of at that time, and Kaleidoscope came out a little bit after our Diversity EP was fully out, but you know, he's one of like these, I want to say like staple artists on Argofox. He's definitely one of the better artists that I've listened to over the years on Argofox. He has like a more distinct style, and his song Kaleidoscope just kind of vibed with me when I first heard it, because when I was making my Argofox Mix 1 mix for my main channel, I was looking up different Argofox songs just to compile a mix together, and I remember listening to this song and like feeling the emotion that TheDiabolicalWaffle kind of put into the song. And I think he mentions in the comments of this video, of the original video here, that it was like an emotional kind of song for him, so he wanted to convey that in this song. And I really do feel that when listening to the song. So when I was gathering all the songs for that mix, like this is like one of the main songs that stuck out within that mix, and it's probably the one song I remember off the top of my head in that Argofox 1 mix that I made. So TheDiabolicalWaffle makes various different songs in different styles. Another good song I think on Argofox he has is called Ashes, but he can make various different styles, but Kaleidoscope is just like a really good progressive house song. So as you guys will see now, you'll see like how kind of emotional and how it kind of captures his emotions and stuff like that. So this is the TheDiabolicalWaffle song Kaleidoscope, and let's get into the breakdown. Alright, so just to kind of break down what's been happening, so it kind of starts with the lead pluck, and then there's also kind of a arpeggiating pluck in the background. You notice how this isn't like a traditional house song where it kind of starts with the 15 to a minute kind of kick snare intro. It's more starting with the plucks and just kind of building the ambience kind of off that. And then there's like a transitionary sound into the pads, and then the kind of sub bass kind of comes back in. And then there's also kind of like a almost reverse kind of sample in the background within this pad playing as well. I'm not exactly sure what that sample is. It almost sounds like a creaking door or something reversed in the background. But I mean, I really like how the plucks are playing, and just the pad is kind of coming in with the sub bass and the bass, and it's just kind of building kind of that setting and scene of, you know, kind of how emotional it is, and just kind of building up the feelings, as I guess you would say. So it's really cool, and it's a little bit different than the more traditional structure for progressive house with the kind of 15 second to minute intro. So that's also kind of why I like this song in general, is because the structuring is different. It doesn't have that traditional kind of kick snare intro. So let's get back into the song. All right, so I just want to stop it there. So you notice how like the claps kind of came in, and that was just kind of the build, and the transitionary sound is he has like a kind of like sound, almost like that, kind of like a note just going down in the kind of piano or in the piano roll, just kind of zooming down to kind of create that kind of effect of transitioning down from one note down into the bass, which is really cool, kind of like that transition. It's a really creative use, and then it just kind of goes right into the drop. But you notice the drop isn't like super heavy, like there's the kick and then like a really nice sounding almost like clap or something, or really kind of acoustic sounding snare, and then it's kind of like a more minimal drop. So with like some hi-hats slowly starting to come in, but we'll break that down a little bit more as you hear more of the kind of drop per se. So let's keep going. All right, so in that first part of the drop, what I noticed is that the bass line was the main emphasis, and then there were different pads playing as well, and then there's that kind of reversed, I think it's more of a string sound than it is of like a clock. I thought it was. It's more like a reverse kind of string sound that you kind of hear in the background with the pads, and then the piano eventually comes in the second part of the drop to kind of give like a lead on top of that bass line. So the bass line was kind of the main focus of the first part of the drop, and then the second part of the drop is when the piano lead kind of comes in. And after that, that's when you kind of hear like a reverse vocal kind of come in as well, and then kind of to transition, and then slowly you kind of hear towards the end of the first drop that you kind of hear the ARP kind of come in to transition into the break section now. So that's a pretty nice lead in, and I couldn't notice any more percussion. There might be kind of like a hi-hat maybe thrown in there, but it didn't seem like the percussion rhythm changed a whole lot when the piano came in. So it's just pretty interesting how minimal this drop was. So anyways, let's just keep going. All right, in that last section, I just kind of want to break down a little bit of the sounds within that section that I liked personally. So I kind of liked the piano and how that was kind of the main emphasis, and I liked how it kind of had the pads playing, but the more of the focus was on the piano and kind of the reverse samples kind of coming in and out. All the samples he kind of used, like the reverse strings and stuff, and the piano were kind of like the main emphasis on that part, which is really cool because there was a bass playing, but it wasn't as noticeable as this part as you hear now, with more of the mid frequencies kind of coming in for that bass line. Like there was a little bit of some sub playing as well with the piano, but the main emphasis to me was the piano and the kind of pad and reverse samples and strings. And I really like how he uses a lot of reversed vocal, almost like samples, and just different interesting samples in this song so far. So props to the Diabolical Waffle so far. So I think this part introduces like that bass line, which is really cool. The one thing I forgot to mention to say is how he made his bass lines so they're kind of groovy. There's a lot of movement, but it's not out of place like in the, I guess, like a disco song or something like that. This, like, it has kind of a more bouncy type feel, but it's not like a really bounce house or future house song. Like it plays within like the emotional effect of like a progressive house song. So there's a lot of movement within the bass line. So that's really cool. So let's keep going. All right, so basically that part was the quote-unquote build-up. Much like Solro song Pussycat, it's kind of interesting how these songs don't really have that really, really big snare build-up. Not like Eminence's song Lipstick, where like you heard that like build-up was like almost for, I feel like 45 seconds, I think, or maybe even a minute. It was quite a long build-up. But Pussycat and this song, Kaleidoscope, don't really have that. For the most part, you kind of heard the piano playing. You kind of heard that bass line coming in and just kind of bouncing around. And then you kind of hear a lot more of the reverse samples and kind of the integrated samples that the Diabolical Waffle threw in. And then you kind of hear some claps a little bit, but like there's no like white noise. Instead, I think he used like a synth with some like high frequency or like a chord progression to like slowly introduce that I guess kind of, as instead of white noise, it kind of is in that frequency as the white noise, and this kind of like almost like automates it to filter like more and make the sound wider in a sense. So it just almost is like I might be incorrect in saying this, but it almost is like opening up like a LFO or something and just like kind of widening the sound. And it's pretty cool because that's a little bit different than what I've heard with other songs, either using like reverse vocals or some type of riser, whereas this song used, or at least in this drop, it used an actual synth chord and just kind of used that instead. So that's something I've not heard before. So that's pretty interesting in itself. So I believe there's a gap here and then the drop hits. So let's keep on going. All right, so within this drop, it's pretty similar to the first drop in the first part, but I notice with this drop that I do notice the hi-hats a bit more. I could be wrong that I missed the hi-hats in the first drop in itself, but I noticed the hi-hats a little bit more in this drop. And then when it was transitioning into the drop, there was kind of like almost like a hi-hat sound kind of playing, and then it did that kind of almost like, I want to call a sub drop a little bit, and like or a bass drop, and then just transitioned in, and the main emphasis was on the bass line again. But I have to say the percussion or the rhythms that the Diabolical Waffle used for this song, super smooth, like, oh man, those are really good like percussion instruments and rhythms, and just smooth overall in the mix. So this part right here is probably my favorite part, kind of introducing the pluck sound into this song. So I'll let you guys listen to this and the outro, and we'll talk more after that. So let's keep it going. All right, so that was the Diabolical Waffle song Kaleidoscope. We'll kind of back up into that section, into the second section of the drop and then the outro. So basically, in the second part of the second drop, the plucks kind of come in. In terms of the percussion, I couldn't hear the hi-hats as much as I did in the first part of the second drop, which is interesting. I could just be missing it from my ears and my kind of perspective, but I didn't hear the hi-hats so much. But I like the main emphasis on the plucks playing and paired with the piano lead. That's really nice. The plucks itself, that's my favorite part of the song, is when the plucks are kind of introduced and playing with the piano. It just gives that really nice emotional vibe. And then after that, it kind of transitions with almost like an LFO or oscillating chord synth, kind of getting wider, adding more white noise. And then there is a transitionary sound into the outro where it kind of has that pluck outro, similar to how the intro started, which is interesting. Again, there's no snare and kick kind of outro, which could range from 15 seconds to a minute. So that's very interesting for another progressive house song. So you notice how in the time of 2018, artists were trying to, or decided to, change up the style a little bit from the more traditional structure of house music. But anyways, overall, this is the Diabolical Waffle song Kaleidoscope, released on Argofox. My takeaways: I really love the song. The emotion conveyed from the song is really good. That pluck section in the second drop is my favorite part of the song. I like how he utilized a lot of different samples in the song. Like it's a lot of background, like reverse strings and stuff, and different reverse vocal kind of transitionary sounds. I like how he didn't really use white noise risers either to transition into like the builds and into the drops. And I like how he didn't really use the traditional kind of snare or snare kick build up. It was just kind of leading in, kind of like Solero song Pussycat, kind of just leading in to it kind of more naturally without the kind of more apparent percussion leading into the build up into the drop. So that's pretty nice. And the way he kind of uses like a chord or a pad to kind of as white noise instead of actual like a white noise riser, which is really cool. And the piano lead reminded me a lot of Drop Towers music, where he used a lot of the piano lead as the main lead sound. So that's really cool as well. And lastly, just the percussion overall in the song is like really smooth. Like the rhythms and everything else are really smooth. So overall, just a really good song, mixed really well, and it's the reason why it's one of my favorite progressive house songs on Argofox for sure. And every time I listen to the song, I just kind of feel the emotions that the Diabolical Waffle was kind of trying to create when creating the song. Like I can kind of hear and feel the space that he was kind of building from the intro, not being the more traditional standard kick snare intro, just kind of building it with those plucks and stuff. So anyways, I hope you guys like this video. Like, subscribe, comment. Comments are really, nice. I got surprised the other day by Fowler, the Monster Cat artist, who commented on my video, and that shocked me. So if you guys comment on all my videos, I get shocked, even though they're regular people that comment on my videos, like Jinx Bro, Very Berry, Pickle Maniac 7. I still get surprised, or even Arshan for that matter. I still get surprised when you guys comment, and I always enjoy it. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and have a good one, and see you in the next video. Peace.